the oil industry, so that we can actually begin to refill our treasury as the case is. And there's so many issues around just what we earn. Aside from that, of course, as I've said, we have to diversify, we've got to spend, we've got to find a way of ensuring that agriculture, which should be one of the great contributors to our GDP, is increased in the way that I've spoken about, so that we can earn more in foreign exchange. If we become a net exporter of rice, as we should be, or at least cut down completely on what we're importing, that will lead to an accretion in our foreign earnings. Then, of course, one of the other ways of doing this is to increase capacity of our industries to produce. If we increase capacity of our industries to produce, we will be able to earn more. How are we going to do that? We've got to resolve the power problem. If we don't resolve the power problems, we can't increase our capacity to do more work. Today, the textile industry used to provide about 400,000 jobs, but today they're down to about 30,000 jobs because of the power problem. Practically every industry has 40% extra in terms of cost because of power. And those of us who are familiar with Nigeria know that there is no business you want to run that does not first take into account how much you're going to spend on diesel. And of course, diesel costs contribute so much to the cost of production and the cost of business generally, that we've got to be able to deal with power so that the country can earn more, so that businesses can earn more, and of course the country can earn more. So everything is tied together. So how do we deal with the power problem? I think dealing with the power problem is an important issue in dealing with the overall economy. Our proposal is first to identify what it is that is wrong. And I think what is wrong, what everyone agrees is wrong, is first that our power problem is actually an energy problem. The meaning of that is that in order to be able to power the generation that we have, the generators we have, we need to have gas going to our IPPs, to our power plants. Now, how do we get gas going to our power plants? Several. The first is that we don't have a gas framework that can do enough, or that can supply enough power, that can supply enough gas to the IPPs. We need pipelines to pipe the gas to the power stations. That whole gas infrastructure would take probably about 10 years or more to be fully developed in order to effectively provide enough gas for the power plants. That's one problem. The second problem is with the cost of gas itself. The cost of gas at the moment, of course, gas producers export a lot of their gas, and they make a lot of money from exporting gas. But for the local market, the price of gas is capped. So it doesn't really make sense for gas producers, because the local market is almost for them a loss. So we need to introduce some parity with the export prices of gas in order to encourage local gas producers to produce gas, so that our generators, so that our plants can have that gas. That's one aspect of the problem. The other aspect of the problem is the transmission grid. You know, of course, that gas has been generating has been privatized, and distribution has been privatized as well. But transmission is not yet privatized. Transmission is the hand of the private Canadian company that just runs our transmission grid. It has not invested in the transmission grid, so the capacity of our transmission grid is still about 7,200 megahertz of power. So even if we increased our generation to say 10,000 or 12,000, it is only 7,200 megahertz of power that can be evacuated. So the capacity to do more in terms of transmission and then the ultimate distribution of power is severely limited. And so that limits the overall the overall power production of the country. So we need to address the problem of transmission. In the short term, the proposal of the APC is to decentralize power so that we can generate power off grid. As I said, if all our transmission capacity is 7,200 megawatts of power, then we must go off grid in order to be able to generate and distribute more power. We have a template in Lagos. Lagos has now about 4 IPPs, 4 embedded generation plants. What that means is this: on the Lagos Island in Marina, there is a plant that does 12.5 megawatts of power. That plant supplies power to all of the public buildings on the island, courts, hospitals, and all of that. And also supplies power to for street lights, all street lights and security lights everywhere. That's what that plant does. But the advantage that we have with that plant is that it's off-grid, it's not going through the national grid. Secondly, it does not depend on piped gas. It uses compressed natural gas, which means that it's actually trucked to the place. It doesn't depend on the pipeline of gas. And then the power is cabled to all of these different places. So that decentralization is absolutely important. We have a similar plant in Ikeja, which does public buildings in Ikeja as well as street lights in that Ikeja area. There's another for the Jew Waterworks, and one has recently been opened in Lekki. We think that that's the way to go. We think that in the short to medium term, we must decentralize power in this way so that these power plants can begin to function off-grid while we are trying to get our gas framework in place, and while we are also working on our transmission grid so that we can expand the capacity of our transmission grid. We're thinking, for instance, that in Alaba market, I'm sure that some of us know where that is, the electronics market, that if you have embedded generation in Alaba market, you can actually produce power cabled to those people who use that industrial cluster and have power there 24/7. And we can do so for several of the other industrial clusters that we have. I'll just come lastly to the question of refineries. I think the question of refineries is one that we've got to take a different approach. Government's involvement in refineries, as in most public utilities, has been a failure and has become worse in the past few years. So what we intend to do is to encourage local investment in refineries and clean up the legislation so that local investors can invest. Already there is a plant, the Dangote plant, which is supposed to process 400,000 barrels of oil. We think that sufficient incentives ought to be given to that enterprise so that at least we have a private refining capacity of 400,000 barrels of oil. That's already taking place in Lekki and in collaboration with the Lagos State government. And we think that that would work very well. And that's the kind of thing we want to encourage, local investment in refineries. And of course, there have been suggestions about modular refineries as well, small refineries that can come into place. A lot will have to do with rewriting the rules about who gets what. The level playing field has not been created in the past, and that's one of the things that we intend to create. A level playing field for all players in the market, no special concessions, so that everybody comes into that market for refined petroleum at the same level, and you don't have some people who have an advantage over others. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why many people have not wanted to invest in refining, and also the caps that have been imposed on refined petroleum. So I think those are some of the answers. The economy is a bit of a big issue. I thought I should spend a bit of time.
Let's give probably a big round of applause. Now, you can understand why he's a professor. It's a very comprehensive answer. Now, we want to make it a little bit more interactive. Is Brother Isaac here? Brother Isaac, you have a question? Is Brother Isaac here? Wait, that's you. Is that Brother Isaac? All right. Anybody have any question? A short question in the audience? Okay, the sister from Place Company Way. make it very fast, but make it more interactive. Go ahead.
I know that the House of Senate and House of Representatives are your support system in your presidency, but do you have any plans to reduce their current payments for their jobs being done? Because right now that's a drain on our current expenditure. Thank you.
And just before you answer, there is a very important question here that I think you should address. It says that, sir, I will appreciate you to clear the air on the claim that General Buhari is a force behind Boko Haram, and what are your plans to deal with those militants?
Thank you very much. With respect to the pay of National Assembly members, it's an important issue indeed.
Yes.
In fact, some of the figures are actually absolutely outrageous.
Ridiculous.
The National Assembly at some point had capital transfers of 150 billion, this was in 2013. One state, Ebonyi State, had all that Ebonyi State earned in that year also was 151 billion. And that's a state of 3.1 million people to the National Assembly of under 700 people.
Mad.
So definitely there's something wrong with that. And we think that an APC majority in the National Assembly will address as a matter of urgency the question of earnings and ensuring that earnings are restricted to what is approved by the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission, which is the body that actually regulates the pay of elected officials of government. And we think that that must be done, and we must maintain the levels that have been recommended. And we must maintain those levels, not just for salaries, but also for allowances. It's absolutely important, and I believe that many legislators, very strongly also believe that this has to be checked. They also believe, because they're criticized almost every day, minimum wage is 18,000 odd naira, and legislators are earning in the millions. It's clear that it cannot stand, and we pray that an APC majority in Senate, this will be for us one of the priority orders of business. General Buhari, as many know, was head of state of Nigeria from 1983 to 1985, August 1985. And in that period, he showed very clearly that he's a true Nigerian to the core, was not at any point known to have favored one religion over the other. As a matter of fact, of the 19 governors that he appointed then, 11 were Christians. Of the ministers that he appointed, over 70% of them were actually Christians, of the ministers that he appointed. That same General Buhari was the one who put down the Maitacidi insurgency. The Maitacidi insurgency, a bit like the Boko Haram. He took leadership, went to Borno, and he quelled that insurgency. The ruling party, if you look at what has happened with Boko Haram and general insecurity, one of the reasons why we're where we are is because of the politicization of the insurgency by the PDP. What we heard initially from General Azazi of Blessed Memory, who was National Security Advisor, was that the reason why the Boko Haram had sprung up was because of internal squabblings within the PDP. That's on record, on video and everything. Then the president himself said that there were PDP people, there were Boko Haram people within the cabinet. It was only after the APC was formed, that they then said, oh, it's the APC that is responsible for Boko Haram. So clearly, that politicization is one that not only slowed down the very serious threat, it slowed down the process of countering the very serious threat posed by these individuals. In fact, it was not until Buhari himself, General Buhari himself, was attacked in Kano and nearly killed, in Kaduna, and nearly killed by these extremists. People began to understand, of course, several people were killed, almost 72 people were killed in that attack. and including,